So Tyler and I have concluded our field testing of the Holosun Iris and the EOTech OGL. These are two highly anticipated lasers for 2025. One of these coming out recently. Just gonna give some of our general thoughts on both of these lasers. I've used the OGL a little bit more, so I'll go ahead and hop into the OGL, some things I liked, some things I did not like. So as you'll see in some of the footage overlaid on this video, the OGL is a very aesthetic laser. I think it's probably one of the best looking lasers on the market today. After that, it kind of falls short in several categories. I had really, really high hopes for this laser personally. I was working my way towards purchasing one. However, after doing some field testing, I am not confident in purchasing it for my personal rifle at the moment. Some of the main reasons are the illuminator definitely needs some work in my opinion. At the dual low mode, the illuminator is pretty weak. It's not very usable. It seems to be pretty messy in terms of the shape of the illuminator, and also it's just really underpowered. And then when you select it up to the dual high mode, the laser is just incredibly powerful. Now, if you're calling in airstrikes or something, great. But if you're actually trying to shoot something, the laser bloom on its own really washes out the illuminator. I think they're onto something great with the laser. I really like the focus adjustment knob. That's probably one of my favorite things on it. I like the sweeping motion here. It's not too bad for me personally. I know Tyler mentioned it wasn't his favorite.
I'm not a fan of it personally, but to each his own.
Yeah. You know, orange to apples. That didn't make sense. But anyway, so just a couple nitpicky things. I'm not a big fan of how crowded it can get at the rear of the laser. When you're using something like a pressure pad, like the mod button or the Axon switch, it can kind of block your ability to get all the way down to the aim high, or even getting off of the off button and onto the aim low. So if you're trying to switch modes, it gets really crowded really fast. I do know a company makes some type of extender for the crane port to move it out of the way, so that will probably need to be used if you're wanting to get this laser. Some of the positives, I really like the fire button. I think it's in a good spot, extremely tactile. Overall, it seems like a really well-made unit. The material choices seem very high quality. The relief cuts on it seem very good and nice, very aesthetic as well. So in conclusion, for me personally, I think the laser and illuminator need some work, but I think EOTech is on the right track for sure. Tyler, what are your thoughts on the OGL?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So I agree with a lot of what you said. In my short time using it, admittedly, a few things that I found that I really liked. Fire button is in a really nice spot. As a lefty, it's dead center, so there's no difference there. Nice, really tactile clicks for the different modes, which is really nice. And of course, it's just really high quality, as we should expect from EOTech. Another thing that, at least for me personally, I like about it is you have space in the center. So my rifle has a front sight post. I can actually use this, unlike the Iris in this case. So a few good pluses. Some things I didn't personally love about it, you already touched on how you liked it. I don't really love the sweeping motion. Maybe I just need to use it more, but I wasn't a huge fan of that. In terms of output, the low power illuminator, close distance, it's great. Longer, there's a little bit to be desired. The laser pointer itself is fine, just like every normal Civ power laser. Moving to high power though, because you're gonna find you need to at those longer distances, you start to blow out the actual target itself. Like you said, Chris, again, kind of reiterating this, with the high power laser, it's too much. Honestly, if I had this, or if I was issued this and I needed to take some kind of long shot, what I probably would end up doing is switching to the illuminator only mode and using my red dot, assuming that I have one. That would probably be the most effective way to do that. But other than that, I mean, yeah, I have some positive things to say. It is full power, so it's not going to be available to everybody. But if it is, it's something maybe to consider. For myself, probably look at some other options available though.
And also, I know you guys have been waiting for the civilian powered version. We have no idea when that's coming out. The FDA can take a long time on approving these lasers. That's the reason why the Iris and the civilian power OGL have taken such a long time to come out. So the civilian power one, they may have made some improvements that we do not know about yet. However, as it stands, the full power one, it has some things to be desired for sure.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the Iris itself, moving into that. I've ran this, I think, a little bit more than you may have, Chris. In my short time with it, admittedly though, it has been really great. A few things to kind of consider with it, depending on your rifle setup. Again, with me with a front sight post, you're gonna get some splash at least, depending on what sights you have on there, or if they're add-on or whatever to a Picatinny rail. So that's something maybe to consider, but it is very compact. It's extremely lightweight. It feels nice, it's robust. The fire button, it is tactile, but I can see that if you're running quickly, or if you're wearing gloves, or if it's cold out like it was when we were shooting, there was some times where I wasn't really sure if I was hitting it. So maybe something, again, training wise to overcome, but if it was a little more tactile, that'd be kind of nice. In terms of the controls, extremely easy to use. I caught on to it pretty quick. On the back, you have off, low, high, and then you have Viz, IR, IR illuminator, and IR illuminator and pointer. So it's really simple to use. And moving to the beam divergence adjustment, I like how it's a slider. It's really easy, and you get audible and tactile clicks, which is really nice. You're probably going to be going off of some visual cues though. I know when we were looking at that target downrange, it was more so, I want to just zoom in on it, or focus down into it. But yeah, and I didn't notice any zero shift or anything like that. We shouldn't expect anything less from Holosun. Their stuff has been pretty good to go so far. Chris, what do you have?
So I was pleasantly surprised with the Iris. I wasn't too sure about it when it was announced last year, or maybe even a year and a half ago or something like that. I don't run a lot of Holosun products myself personally, but I have to say the Iris has really impressed me. Both of these have VCSEL illuminators, and they are not close, unfortunately. The Iris has one of the cleanest illuminators I've seen in a long time in terms of the ability to give contrast to the targets, and it has very good edge-to-edge clarity, and then the laser power is extremely balanced. So between the low and the high setting, the low setting is very usable at 100 yards. And we probably could have kicked it up to the high setting, but we really didn't need it. And then on top of that, the sliding focus adjustment, if you need to narrow it down, you can do it very, very quickly. So we did a test that in a longer form video that you guys will see at some point. We shot at 100 yards, and the Holosun had one of the fastest times engaging targets out to 100 yards, just because of the focus adjustment ability and the illuminator and laser balance. It just made it really easy on the eyes, and I think more than enough power. Now, this is the civilian model. They will have a full power model at some point. I know Holosun full power lasers are hard to come by, so that will probably be reserved for LE or MIL guys. So we don't really know how that one will perform, but I think it will be a really, really good contender for sure. Before I forget, a couple things that I wasn't too fond of. The buttons at the rear are not very tactile. They have a lot of drag on them. They're kind of heavy. I know one of the complaints at the SHOT Show models were that the buttons were too loose. They may have overcompensated a little bit on that, in my opinion, or they may have designed it to loosen up over time to settle on a nice happy medium between the two. Also, something that I find interesting, I'm not sure if I like it or dislike it, is how they have separated the power settings here. So typically on a laser, they combine the high-low settings onto one function. On the Iris, they have separated it. So there are two switches. One controls the power, high, low, and then one goes from Viz, IR, dual IR, whatever. Then you can cycle the power levels for each selection option. I think that's cool. I'm still not sure how I feel about it. I think it makes sense, but how do you feel about it?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's an interesting take on it. I know we were messing with a few lasers, and like the PEC 15, for example, I'm pretty familiar with it. It was really easy for me to switch modes, and you took a little more time because you hardly have any time on one. This is really easy to learn, in my opinion, as long as you know, hey, this one is power level and this one is setting. So for that reason, if you're not familiar, I don't know if people are going to be getting issued these, maybe in your law enforcement agency, but the learning curve is really low, and you can actually understand pretty well what these abbreviations mean, unlike some other lasers out there.
I think now that I think about it, I think my main concern is that instead of having one switch to cycle, you now have two switches to cycle independently of each other. And I think that can get under stress or something, or if you're trying to make a specific function, I think it can kind of get a little murky sometimes, separating them into two options. But again, I think that's just a training thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, so I mean, in closing here, I would say both of these are pretty good contenders, especially when a Civ Power of the OGL does come available. A lot of good settings, a lot of good things to consider. We'll see what happens in terms of output with the OGL. It's really easy for a full power laser for them to crank a lot of power into the laser just because they can, there's no restriction. But so far in the upcoming things, we actually know roughly when they're coming out. Iris is looking really good.
Yeah, I was impressed. So thank you guys for watching. Again, this is Tyler from Steel Industries. They helped us conduct this test and they moved heaven and earth to get this Iris down here in time, and also the OGL as well. You should be able to buy both of these lasers at steelindustries.com. And remember, do good, be dangerous, live free.